Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm testing my mic. All right. So I hope everyone is ready. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. So before we start the debate, I would like to ask all the debaters to state your name and your position, starting from the government side. FSTA. TAMHIDI.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ismail Raiza and I'll be the Prime Minister from the government team.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Maya and I will be the Deputy Prime Minister of the government team.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Alia binti Jafrizan and I am the third speaker of the government team. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. I am Laila Mastura and I will be the opposition leader.
Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everyone. My name is Alia Shafira and I will be the deputy leader of opposition for this debate.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Afif and I will be the opposition whip for this debate.
All right, thank you. So the House will come to order. I am pleased to welcome you all of you to this final round of USEM Vice Chancellor Debate Championship 2022. Before we start, I would like to remind the members of the floor they may only raise point of information or POIs in the constructive speech and only after the first minute and before the last minute of speech. Also, please ensure that your internet connection is stable and your voice is audible. So are there any inquiries before we start the debate from any of the speakers or adjudicators? No, all right. So with today's motion, this House would allow victims of violent crimes to veto the prosecution of their offenders. I will call upon the Prime Minister I will call upon Prime Minister from TAMHIDI to deliver his or her speech. Here.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'll start my speech in 3, 2,
One. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you to good morning to all the educators and members of the floor. Thank you for time given. So today we from the government team truly believe with to this motion in which this house should allow victims of violent crimes to veto the prosecution of their offenders. With the stance of we believe that justice should be given to the victim equally. So first of all, I would like to define to this motion. So veto is a constitutional right to reject a decision or proposal made by a lawmaking body. And also, in the event of a veto, the prosecution can still choose to pursue legal action in the future provided it is within the statute of limitation. Moreover, violent crime can be defined as the act of harming or threatening with violence. And
Aziz.
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned about the limitations. What are the limitations from your side? What kind of limitations are you trying to impose in the prosecution itself?
The limitation is the time limit given by the law where legal action may be initiated. So we're moving to the prosecution definition in which it is institution and conducting of legal proceedings against someone in respect of a criminal charge. So basically, prosecution is the process of officially accusing someone in court of law of committing crime. So, the person involved with this case, the stakeholders that we're going to protect is the victim of the violence in this motion. And today, I as the first speaker would explain the point of giving rights to the victim. My second speaker would explain about how would the victim would be traumatized to continue the trial proceedings and to give ample time for the victim to prepare for the trial. And my third speaker will be giving the summarization of our points. Okay. First of all, the main issue, the problem to solve for this today's motion, in which I would firstly say that most victims of a violent crime always have their own pride. Whenever they know that they're going to facing their own offender, they know by doing it in normal prosecution, normal trial, they can even win because somehow the offender tend to influence the prosecution hall itself. Also, these victims can even express their own view, their own experience, because they think that the court of law itself wouldn't believe what they're going to say. And also there's also a case where they're facing the offender with high level status, in which they would be the high status level offender would corrupt the court of law itself. The burden of proof I'm going to bring today is by agreeing with this motion, violent crimes would be settled easily and smoothly, and also the process itself would be smooth because it involved the victim and offender itself. So there's the engagement between the victim and offender without the victim being without the victim being intimidated. So I think that would help in the trial and the
POI, please.
prosecution process itself. Sorry. Moving on to my first point, which is give rights to the victims. So, what is who is victim? Victims is the person who attend proceeding and to be heard, to be informed of proceedings and events, to ensure the proceeding and trial to be free from any unreasonable delay. So, what does it mean by to be free from any unreasonable delay, in which there's also a case when the offender itself heard about what they're going to be punished, what they're going to be what they'll be facing during in the punishment period. Most offenders would get aggressive when they heard about it, and they tend to attack the offender. They tend to attack the lawyer in the court of law. Also, this kind of veto power would give privacy and protection for the victim from being intimidated and harassed at the court of law itself. And also, and also this motion also this motion also would give equality to all the victim, to the lawyer, and to the offender itself. So I would like to restate my stance in this. We and the government team strongly believe that to this motion, this House allow victims of violent crimes to veto the prosecution of the offendant because we believe that justice should be given to the victim equally. That's all from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you to the Prime Minister. Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 19 seconds. I would then invite the Leader of Opposition from FSTA to deliver her speech. Here.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Before I start my speech, am I audible and visible clearly without any lagging?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. If at any point I am lagging for any reason, please inform me very quickly. Yeah. With that, I would like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The government would like to give justice to the victims equally, but we on the opposition side believe that by allowing victims to veto the prosecution, it actually would not give the justice to them. Assalamualaikum and good morning. I bid to Ms. Chairperson, the wise adjudicators, accurate timekeeper, my wealthy opponents of the government side, my loyal comrades of the opposition team, and to the members of the House. I welcome all to today's debate with the motion, this House would allow victims of violent crimes to veto the prosecution of their offenders. I am Laila Mastura and I will be the leader of opposition. As the first speaker from the opposition side, I will be doing two things. Firstly, I will rebut the case brought by the Prime Minister and also give one argument to oppose this motion. Nextly, my second speaker, Ms. Shafira, who will be presenting her arguments also to oppose this motion. And lastly, my opposition whip, Mr. Afif, will deconstruct the debate and show you why we are correct in our stance and why this motion should fall. Before I go into the stance and the case and the arguments from the opposition side, I would like to rebut the case, the points given by the Prime Minister. Okay, so the Prime Minister has stated that their stance is that they would like to, they believe that justice should be given to the victims equally. But again, as I have said in the start of my speech, we believe that allowing victims to veto the prosecution, it actually does not give the justice, which I would the opposition would explain in all our arguments. Okay, and then onto the definition, we agree with both the definition of veto and prosecution. However, she defined violent crime as harming or threatening a person with violence. Actually, that is not violent crime. It's violent crime is actually harming. Is doing violent acts upon someone, in which you could kill, the killing or murdering, raping, murdering, raping, and etc. All those kind of violent crimes, and not just threatening. So, and she also mentioned that the stakeholder in this debate is just the victims, which we believe that is not just the victim, it's also about the offender and also the justice system overall. Okay, and then she also stated that the problem is that most victims are frightened when facing their offenders, and so they and also that they believe they cannot win in the court in the case because the offenders can influence the court, and so they the offender in a prosecution term, the defendant can win. And so they also I have to ask the government is that if you say that the victims have their fright, the victims are afraid of their offenders, does it means that the offender should be given their whole sentence and not just be vetoed and also be apologized and not undergo the prosecution all throughout? It's just you want to give justice, but you also want to let the offender go away, just like that. Okay, so okay. So, in her points is that by having this veto right for the victim, it would give rights to the victims instead. However, I cannot understand how the elaboration given by the Prime Minister actually support this, because you can say that she said that the offender know the charges and sentence, and so they would get aggressive and attack the lawyer, the victim, etc., etc. And so wasn't that because these offenders are aggressive, we would like for them to stay in the prison. We would like them to stay prosecuted and not vetoed about the prosecution. Okay, and then she also said that by giving the veto, they would give the privacy and protection. In some cases, in some charges, the victim might not have privacy, but that does not validate the government action to give the victims veto power. Okay, so I would like to continue into the stance and our first argument from the opposition team, in which that we believe that this motion should fall because allowing victims of violent crimes to veto the prosecution of the offenders does not uphold the justice. So our first point is under the keyword law is where the justice is. We believe that the prosecution is where the justice is. The law, you have to understand the prosecution process of sentencing someone with a life sentence or imprisonment is actually a long process. You have to know the charges. There would be investigation. There would be interrogations. So in this way, we are actually investigating if the offender is guilty or not. In our case, the offender is very much guilty. And so if you know that the offender is actually guilty of the violent crime, and then you would like to allow victim to veto the prosecution, wouldn't that just be the same as allowing criminals outside? And so it would push away the credibility of the justice system overall. Because when you have by allowing victims of violent crimes, in which that you have individual victims to veto the prosecution of the offenders, this means that one person, victim A, might veto, victim B might not, victim C maybe they will veto, victim D does not veto. So in this way, we can see the inconsistency in prosecution. So when you allow this inconsistency in the legal system, in the prosecution process, it would instill the mistrust of the society inside the legal system, which also maybe in a backward way also maybe support one of their sentence is that the justice system does not allow victim to get their rights. because it is inconsistent. So how would you actually uphold the justice? How would you actually give the justice to the victim if the offender of the criminal, the violent criminal, are actually allowed to go outside without serving their sentence? And so also, should we actually depend on the sentiment of apologizing, of the victim apologizing the offender? Okay, for this question, I would my deputy of leader of opposition would explain it more. With that, I would like to reaffirm our stance is that we oppose this motion. We believe that allowing victims of violent crimes to veto the prosecution of the offenders would not uphold the justice. With that, I end my speech. Thank you.
Here. Thank you, Leader of Opposition. The speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 9 seconds. There's no wonder why Laila is so brave and adamant in fighting for justice, as she herself looks up to Saidina Umar Al-Khattab. Next, I would like to invite the Deputy Prime Minister, which is Sumaya from PTB, to deliver her case. Here. PTB, are you all right?
Wait.
Am I audible? Sorry, am I audible?
Yes.
So I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, ladies and gentlemen. So today, we as the government team are debating today with motion. This house would allow victims of violent crimes to veto the prosecution of their offenders. Okay, so before I start my point and recap some of the points from my Prime Minister, I would like to, before rebutting, I would like to clear the whole thing, because I believe that today we are actually fighting for the same objective, which is to protect the victim. Okay. All right. So moving on to my rebuttal, the leader of the opposition team has asked us how are we actually trying to uphold the justice, and if the violent criminal are actually allowed to freely roam outside and not receive their sentence. All right. So I believe that I think that this is something that is worldwide, has been used, because I think that all of us are famously known of this criminal tracker. We can actually use this to at the ankle of the offenders and put them and to know where
POI, please.
their whereabouts, and we can actually know what they are doing at that time.
POI, please.
We can actually stop that. All right. So
Your IDs?
POI, please.
So moving on to my first speakers, my first speaker from the Prime Minister, we have been trying to tell you guys that we are actually trying to protect the justice of the victim itself. and that is the today's debate main objective. All right, so like my first prime minister, she has been trying to tell you guys that maybe the offenders, the offenders may be from a high status offenders. So it is logic for the victim to feel traumatized, to feel afraid of them because they are from high status and they have wide connection of people
Your eye, please.
that they can need. No, all right. So I think it is very logic for the for the victim to feel intimidated by the high status offenders. So moving on to my first point.
Your eye, please.
My first point is that the victim would be too traumatized to continue the trial proceeding. All right. So we need to understand this, that the victim is the prime subject of this whole trial itself, because the victim should be there when the trial is holding. All right. So I believe that we need to think about the mental health of the victim itself, because like the leader of the opposition team have been talking about how does actually the violent crime actually includes rape and also murdering and also rape. So we are trying to give this example from rape, like if the victim is a rape victim, the victim would be too traumatized to hold the trial and to tell the story of what actually happened, and to even have a look at the offender itself, because they are too traumatized and they keep on reminding back of what actually happened, and they would not open their mouth and cannot be on their logical state of mind to tell what actually happened, and therefore it can actually lead for the offenders to actually be freed from the sentence. All right, so that would be much more grave mistake that could actually happen. All right, so moving on to my second point, which is what are we trying to reach by actually veto the prosecution of the offenders, is to actually give ample time for the victim and also the lawyer to prepare for the trial, because we know that the lawyers are actually the one who need to find all of the victims and also the people that are included in
Your
the whole.
eye, please.
No. All right. So
Your eye,
I
please.
believe that, yes.
Okay, so you mentioned, I would like to divert your attention back to the ankle bracelet. Ankle bracelets are used for offenders who have served their sentences and are on probation. So are you saying that veto is only to delay the justice? So if the justice is delayed, where is the justice for the victims?
I will not stop. I will not answer that question, because I would like to continue my points. All right. So what are we trying to tell you guys by having the ample time? Because I believe that we need to have the equivalent time for us to actually prepare to defend ourselves, because the prosecution are actually trying to for the offenders, for the victim itself, we need to have ample time to prepare. I believe that
Your eye, please.
with the stance us today, which is that we believe that justice should be given for the victim equally, because like us, we stated before, we as the current government, we are trying to protect the mental, not only physical, but also the mental health of the victim itself. Because I believe that if the mental health of the victim is not stable, it is hard for the whole trial to be able to go on and also be successful. And also, like I mentioned before, we cannot actually reach a verdict that we are satisfied with. All right. So with that, I think that like I mentioned before, today's debate, we and the opposition side are actually trying to reach the same objective, which is to bring justice to the victim. But the whole should understand that what kind of justice we're trying to reach is that we are trying to reach the justice for the victim from also the physically and also the mental health of the victim, because all of us know that mental health is one of the most important things, because we all know that without if the mental health is corrupted, many things that could happen, and it would not be good for the trial itself. With that, I rest my case. And I would like to repeat our stance, which is we as the government team believe that by allowing victims of violent crimes to veto the prosecution of their offenders, we believe that justice should be given to the victim equally. With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you to the Deputy Prime Minister Sumaya for your constructive speech. The speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 59 seconds. Next, I would like to invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition, Alia Shafira, to represent FSTA, the opposition bench, and also Swifties to give her speech. Here.
Okay, hello everyone. Before I start my speech, I would like to check whether I audible and can you visually see me clearly?
Yes.
All right, okay. So I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning I bid to all the members of the floor. So we meet again in our final debate for this tournament. This house, with the motion, this house would allow victims of violent crimes to veto the prosecutions of their offenders. And as the opposition side, we believe we have a rigid case. We cater to so many loopholes. We cater to so many things in this debate, and therefore why our side should take the win for today. And as the second speaker, my name is Alia Shafira, and I will be doing 3 things. I will be rebutting the very blunderful points coming from the government side, providing 2 points under the key phrase of misuse of the system, and also inequality judgment for the criminals, and also proving to you why the opposition has the better upper hand in this debate. Right, moving on to the rebuttals. Okay, first of all, I would like to ask the government about the limitations. You mentioned about the time limitations. Okay, how about what is the meaning of this time limitation? What kind of time limitation are you trying to impose to the trial in itself? How long are you going to make? How long is the time for the victims in order for them to get another retrial per their request? This is not clarified. And then how are you saying that you are going to give a better justice to the victims if you can't even provide that clearance to the victims in itself? All right. Okay, so mentioned they are saying about about the status quo because of most of the victims are feeling the enfrightenment to the offenders because the offenders are influenced. The keyword here is for high profile cases. So why are you only catering to high profile cases? Or so are you saying violent crimes who did not make the news, who did not become high profile cases, who are not being aired on the newspapers should not be getting the same veto as the ones with high profile cases? What is at the first place, why is the urgency for veto in the first place if you're not going to cater to a larger scope, right? Okay, moving on to their points about it gives comfort to the victims in itself by giving them the power because they do not have to face with the harassment from these supporters. But then again, justice is also delayed for the victims. Why would you want to uphold? Where is your justification in upholding the veto if there is already room for the victims to get a clear prosecution, to get a direct justice? In this case, I believe that direct justice is better than indirect justice, right? Okay, and also when you say about how they are going to face, they have the option to stop the trial because they have to lessen the harassment. But we believe by stopping the trial in itself, it only opens more rooms for harassments to come from the outside. All right, Annie, put your eyes, please.
You say that when we give the veto is not a very clear and smooth prosecution, but then if no veto without we involve the victim, is it a clear and etc.?
All right. Okay, it's funny how you mentioned that because in your case in itself, you don't provide us with a clear mechanism. Where is the time limitation? Time limitation for the victims to request for another retrial should they want to do it again. All right. So again, your side's argument is very biased. Okay, moving on. Okay. Moving on to my second point under the key phrase of misuse of the system, and also to minimize the in the key phrase unequal judgment for criminals. All right. What is met? Okay. Moving on moving to the first point, misuse of the system. Okay. Why do we say that it is a misuse of the system? Okay. When you give a victim the power to veto, it can actually provide loopholes for the criminals. Why the loophole from the criminals? Because they can overturn, they have the opportunity to overturn their verdict by putting the pressure to the victims through manipulation, and the manipulation can be of many things. Manipulation through threats, pressure. So we believe that clashes with the government's point, and we believe our side provides a better standing why this motion should fall. And then there is no real justice for and then when that happens, when the misuse that happens, there is no misuse justice for the sisters, and there is no benefits coming from them. All right. Okay, moving on to the third point, which is unequal judgment for the criminals. Okay, unequal judgment is for the criminals is that we paint a scenario, right? Okay, we're going to paint a scenario. So there are two offenders doing the same crime, but towards the different victim. So one offenders most likely get one offenders have the chance to get a lighter sentence, one gets a heavier sentence. Because why? Because because of the vetoes that was given to the victims in the course of the trial itself. It's as if you're gambling with the offender state. Why do you want to gamble with the offender state? You have to remember in the justice system that we are protecting the justice system, the victims and also offenders are protected. So why do we say that this is bad? The vetoment is bad because you have to give the chance for offenders to get a trial in itself. And there is even a saying, people are innocent until proven guilty. So that is why it is better for a trial just to stood and for the law to prosecute in order rather than vetoing them in the first place. And then there is no justification to the offenders. If the offender is actually not guilty, but because the trial was vetoed, then what would be if they are guilty but but their trial was vetted? So are you allowing criminals to walk free? Are you opening more doors for them to walk free? All right, so I believe our side has the better upper hand in this debate, and therefore the opposition should win today's debate. Thank you. I rest my case.
Thank you to the Deputy Leader of Opposition for the case given. Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 2 seconds. When I asked what is her life motto, right, she quoted Taylor Swift and said, "You are what you love." And she really lived up to it because we can see that she has a passion in security and she aspires to be a cybersecurity consultant. Next, I would like to invite Alia from Pusat TAMHIDI B for your web speaker speech. Here.
Am, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. So I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, for today's debate, we, the both side, the government side and the opposition side, we have the same objective, which is we want the justice to be upheld, right? And and for any violent crimes to be done smoothly. But from the government side, we decided to give the victims of the violent crime itself a veto in the prosecution of their offenders. And here, my first and second speaker already gave you the reason and the points why we from the government side stated that. So to rebut, here I am to rebut some point from the opposition side and summarize why we, the government side, has stated and the reason why we should win this debate. First thing first, the opposition side state that when we do give the veto to the victims, it will lose trust from the society since we give the victim and the offender will go out because the trial itself is being stopped by the justice of the victim. But you need to know that in this situation, we actually involve the victims in order about their opinion and about their own thoughts, whether the victim itself should be, the prosecution should be stopped or not. We involve the victim into the trial, which means anything happen, the victim itself should know the consequences of their own things, because they are the one who actually going through the crime itself, the one who going through
Your eye, please.
stuff. So because of that,
Your eye, please.
neglect the rights of the victim to share their opinions, whether they want to veto the prosecution or not. Here we can see that we give a better justice to the victim about how we handle the case, ladies and gentlemen. So I don't think that the society we lose their trust to the law since we give everyone who involved in the prosecution itself their rights to
Your eye, please.
give their opinions in
Your
order
eye,
to
please.
have a smooth. I'm sorry, thank you. To have a smooth trial. Okay. Besides, the second point I would like to rebut. They said that if we doing this, if we give veto to the victim of violent crime, we will provide loophole and we actually misuse of the system. But you need to know that even if we're not giving the veto to the victim itself, the lawyer and the prosecutor also have the rights in order whether the trial should be continued or not. It's only the same thing, but this time we give the victim their rights in order to tell the court either they think that this should
Your eye, please.
continue to give the punishment straight away to the offender or not. So I don't think that we not gain any benefit since by the period of we stop doing that, the lawyer can do their own investigation and etc.
Your eye, please.
to prove whether the offender is right or wrong. I'm sorry, thank you. So moving on to the next point, which is this is not give equal justice. And you stated one of the example, if there are two offender doing the same crime, but then one of the victim want to give veto, but the other did not. You need to know the backstory of why the crime happened at the first place. Yes, maybe they are doing the same crime, but at the first place, why the victim are the one who face the consequences itself. Like yes, for example, both of them are being assault and etc. But which offender are doing that because of what reason? Maybe the first one is their own relative, but the other one is any stranger that came across them and doing that without any consent. So we need to know that. That's why we give the veto to the victim, since they know better about what happened at the first place. So you also stated that
POI, please.
if we're doing that, there's no justification if the
Your
offender
please.
is wrong as a child.
POI, please.
That's why I'm sorry. No, thank you. So that's why we're doing this veto, so that we can continue. The lawyer and anyone who involved in the investigation can continue to find the reason and why this happened at the first place. So let me summarize my case, which is we from the government side, with the motion, this house will allow victims of violent crimes to veto the prosecution of the offenders should go through, because we believe that by doing this, we are giving the justice equally to the victim and anyone involved. As we stated before, by doing this, we give rights to the victim, equal right to the victim, since all the victims have different social status, and anything could happen in the court itself. Besides, we also believe that it will help the victim to go through to the trial itself, because they might be traumatized, and and it should be and we should also include it to our consider. And lastly, we also see that by allowing the victims of these violent crimes, it can give ample time for the victims and anyone who involved ample time to prepare for the next trial, since it is not like we rejected the court, the case, but we stop it for a while. So they can have enough time to find evidence and proof to attend the offense, to make the offender, to prove the offense is guilty. So with that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Alia, for your speech. The speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 59 seconds. We can see that Alia is very passionate in humanity, and this aspiring surgeon have a very eye-opening life motto, in which she said that work for a cause, not for applause. So next, I would like to invite the opposition whip speaker to deliver his rebuttals. Here.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Am I audible? Can you see me? Am I clear? Crystal, okay. I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good morning. My name is Afif, and I will be the opposition whip for this debate. And what I will be doing is I will first rebut the points made by the government. And what I will be doing later is I will reconstruct the debate, and I will prove to everyone here that is present here that the opposition should win and the motion should fall. And what we are trying to achieve here is we want to oppose the motion, in which our stance on this debate is that we oppose the motion because we believe that this does not uphold justice. Now, before I start anything, I would like to first re-clarify what one of the things that the government say. The government keeps saying that they think that we have the same objective, but in fact, I disagree. Even though we are trying to uphold justice, what you are trying to achieve is you want justice only for the victims. We feel that you are very tunnel-sighted. You do not consider the scale of the effect of the justice system. And that's why we, as the opposition, consider a lot of stakeholders in this debate. We think that justice should be applied to everyone and not just the victims. We think the criminals should be given justice. The victims should be given justice. The justice law should be fair as well, and the society should experience the effects of the justice itself. Now, I would like to move on to the rebuttals. Firstly, the Prime Minister says something about giving rights to the victims, and you're saying that by giving the victims power to veto the prosecution, you think that they can be free from us unreasonable delay. And you also talks about how criminal feels when the criminal feels the punishment, they will act irrationally in court. But you didn't give proper justification on how this veto will prevent that. And you do not explain how this also affects to the rights of the victims. And like my second speaker, my deputy leader of opposition said, by doing this, it will also extend the time. Like when the victim vetoes the prosecution will be delayed to another time within the statute of limitations. But this will give time for the criminal to act irrationally out of the court. So how does veto itself can stop this issue? Now, we think that by doing this, there has more chances for the offender to harm, and this will cause more harm to the victim than it will to the criminal. Now, the deputy prime minister talks about when the offender is of high status, the victim will feel traumatized. And you say that it's logical for the victim to feel intimidated. But that's why we are trying to stop the victim from having veto power. They are so easily manipulated by these emotions that they cannot make just decisions. They cannot make proper decisions because they can feel intimidated, scared, or traumatized. And that's why we think that the trial must undergo immediately. And her points were, she talks about what if the victim was raped? She will be traumatized and she wants to delay. And your third point also talks about you want to give ample time to the victim and the lawyer to prepare for the prosecution. But you are trying to imply that the only reason for this veto power for the victims is only to delay time. But this does not make sense, because, okay, I assume, since you did not mention in the mechanism, I assume that you think that the prosecution rules are set according to the current justice system, in which the prosecution date is set by agreement from both lawyers, and lawyers can also ask for delay if both lawyers are in agreement. So if your only justification for this veto power system is to delay the prosecution, then it is useless, because in order to set the date for prosecution, we have to consider the schedule of the court and the agreement between both lawyers. So the lawyers have already considered everything before setting the date for the prosecution. So I think that this renders your purpose of giving the veto power to the victims useless. Now, the government whip also talks about, she rebutted the points made by our first speaker, in which she talks about we said that by implicating this system, it will lose trust from the society. And you talk about, this involves the victims, they have their opinion, and do you think that the victims will make decisions while knowing the consequences of their decisions? But like you also said this. You also said that the victims can feel intimidated, traumatized, and the victim is already under a lot of pressure. Now you want them to consider the consequences of their actions? I don't think the victims, especially the ones who are under a lot of pressure, should make such a tough decision, especially when they are expecting feedback from the society. And you also talk about you think that lawyer and the prosecutor have rights, the victim should have right as well. And you also talk about knowing the backstory of you think that the victim should have the rights because the victim know the backstory of the event, but still justice should apply to everyone. You keep saying that the victims are the ones that should be given justice, but everyone should be receiving justice. And like our first speaker said, the lawmaking process takes a lot of consideration and study. The amount of effort and the amount of consideration put into the lawmaking process makes it the most just system that we have right now. So we think that it is better, it is more rational to depend on the justice system on whether or not we should let the criminal be prosecuted or not. And with all of that said, I believe the opposition have proved to everyone actually, to everyone watching here, that we have the better case. Our world is better than their world, and I would like to restate our stance in which we oppose this motion because we believe that it does not uphold justice. And with that, I end my speech. Thank you.
Thank you to the whip speaker from the opposition bench. Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 4 seconds. Next, the House will adjourn for 1 minute to let both the negative and affirmative side to prepare for their reply speeches. 1 minute starts now. All right, your 1 minute is up. I call upon the speaker from the opposition side to deliver their reply speech. Here.
Before I start my reply speech, am I visible and audible for everyone?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Please inform me quickly. I will start my speech.
Laila,
in
you are
I'm
lagging.
sorry, you are lagging.
Oh, that was quick. Okay. Am I lagging now? Again, am I lagging right now? Or is it okay? Okay.
Okay.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum. Good morning, and we meet again in the reply speech for the opposition team for the final of this debate. I'm Laila Mastura, and I will be delivering the reply speech again from the opposition side, where I would summarize the debate. The opposition team are actually winning to this debate. So today's debate is on the motion this House would allow victims of violent crimes to veto the prosecution of their offenders. And as the opposition team, we believe that this motion should fall. So why do we believe that this motion should fall? Because allowing victims, the victims of violent crimes to veto the veto power does not actually uphold the justice. Okay, so onto the arguments given by the opposition team, we have stated three main arguments which would support our sentence and prove to you why our stance is correct. So our first part is actually about the law is where the justice is. The current law, our current status quo, where the victims does not hold the veto power to stop the prosecution of the offenders is actually where the justice is. I have already said that the prosecution process, the lawmaking process, is very has already been discussed and have been already finally adjusted to make the process the most just system. So our current justice system is actually very just and would actually uphold the justice. So why do you want to throw away that? And also by actually allowing the victims to veto, it would allow inconsistency in the legal system. And if we see the ripple effect, it would instill the mistrust mistrust in the society about the legal system. Also, onto our second point, we have already said that by allowing these victims of the violent crimes to veto the prosecution of the offenders, there would be possible misuse of the system, because the government does not mention of the mechanism of how they would apply the veto power. So there will be manipulation from the offender team, offender side, to actually pressurize the victim to veto it. So the veto might be in the voice of the victim, but does not actually come from the victim. So it would actually be misuse and abuse of the system. Also, onto our third point, in which there would be no justice equitability for the criminals themselves, in which that the offender A might get vetoed, their prosecution might get vetoed, so they would be get away scot-free, while offender B does not. The victim wants the prosecution to go on, so they would serve their sentence. So in that way, it actually does not uphold the justice, because some criminals get away scot-free while some does not. So which again prove to you why our belief that this house would allow victims of violence to the prosecution of the offenders does not actually uphold the justice. So before I sit and end my speech, I would like before I end my speech, I would like to implore to the all members of the House to choose wisely, choose to uphold justice by continuing the prosecution of the violent crime offenders, and choose to reject this motion, choose opposition. With that, I end my speech. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Laila. The speaker spoke for 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Next, now to conclude, let's welcome another aspiring doctor that we have in today's debate, Sumaya from the government side, to deliver the reply speech and also the last speech for Vice Chancellor Cup 2022. Here.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for today we have been trying to debate about the motion which goes that this house would allow victims of violent crimes to veto the prosecution of their offenders. Okay, so like I've been trying to talk, we the government team have been trying to tell you guys that we and the opposition side have actually the same objective, which is to protect the victim. All right, so we as the government team believe that we have actually proved that we are trying to protect the victim's mental health and also physical health by giving ample time for them to prepare for the trial itself. All right, because the victim can actually provide enough evidence to prove that the offenders are guilty by like we have been trying to tell you guys, by having ample time. All right. So we believe that the government team believe that the opposition side have failed to understand what we are trying, the mechanism that we have given by actually using the criminal tracker, which is the criminal tracker are actually used for the people on bail and also people high risk offenders. Right. So they have been the opposition side talked about how it allowed criminal to walk free, but it actually by not allowing the veto are actually more risk for the offenders to walk free, because it may actually happen if a false accusation occurs. Like what I'm trying to say is that in the long run, we as the current caring government, we are trying to reach is that we can actually reduce the cases of false accusation of the real offenders, because by having in the long run, we can see that nowadays maybe we don't know much, but there are cases of false accused offenders that are actually given the law, but it was not their fault. So I believe that we, the government team, believe that by actually having the power for the victim to veto on the prosecution, it can actually reduce the number of cases of false accusations. Because like we mentioned before, we are trying to give ample time for the victim to prepare themselves mentally and also physically. All right, so let me recap some of the points that we have been given, which is the first one is that the victim would be traumatized to continue the trial proceeding. Like we've elaborated before, we are trying to protect the victim and we need them to be ready for the trial before they want to talk anything about the criminal that happened, that they actually encountered. And the second one, we also have elaborated about that we want to give ample time for the victim to prepare for the trial. And we believe that this is very important, like I've mentioned before. And also the third one is to give rights to the victim. With the stance of, we believe that justice should be given to the victim equally, like what the opposition side also have been trying to talk about. I believe that this house has actually fully understood what we, the government side, have been trying to talk about, and understand fully that we are actually trying to protect the victim by actually giving them the rights to a veto on the prosecution. With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
All right, with that, this marks the ending of the Vice Chancellor Debate Championship 2022 final debate round. On behalf of the House, I thank the adjudicators for their assistance and I congratulate all the debaters on their performance. Therefore, now the host will assign all the adjudicators to breakout room to discuss. And I think everyone else can leave this room, because the final decision will be delivered during the closing ceremony. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. YDP. Thank you, Team PTB.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
It's a good debate.
Thank you.